You won't see any warning tape at the city limits. There aren't checkpoints or barbed wire fences. Sometimes all it takes is a sunset and a reputation that travels faster than any law ever could. Welcome to Beyond Borders. Today, we're counting down the top 10 towns in Texas where black travelers have learned to keep their guard up after dark. These aren't ghost towns, but if you're not part of the in crowd, you might feel like you've vanished. In a place famous for its friendly faces, brisket, and boots, there are still pockets where the welcome mat comes with a curfew. Some towns posted rules in bold letters. Others just let the cold stares and closed doors do the talking. And the truth is, most of these places are still right there on the map. This isn't your average travel guide. It's a deep dive into Texas's hidden history, racial dynamics, and the unspoken boundaries that shaped whole zip codes. If you thought the civil rights era solved it all, you may want to buckle up. We're about to unpack the stories and legacies behind some of the most exclusionary towns in the Lone Star State. If you care about the real story, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe to Beyond Borders, because these are the journeys you won't see on postcards. Number 10, Farmington. Ever been somewhere that feels like it's missing an entire chapter? Welcome to Farmington, Texas. On the surface, it's all small-town charm, a single blinking light, a couple of diners, and the sound of Friday night football. But diversity? That's one story Farmington never learned to tell. With less than 10,000 residents, Farmington's black population has hovered stubbornly below 7%. Neighboring cities have grown into melting pots, but here, the vibe is still very much locals only. The County Museum? Heavy on Confederate nostalgia, light on black history. The schools? Consistently low in diversity scores, and social studies classes tend to skip right over local stories of segregation or the struggle for civil rights. Ask around, and you'll hear the same thing: it's a nice place, if you know your place. Ever filled your gas tank and felt the room go silent? That's Farmington after sunset if you're black. It's not an official sundown town anymore, but the atmosphere says otherwise. For black travelers, that sense of caution isn't paranoia, it's protection. Number 9, Jayton. If you blink, you'll miss Jayton. And if you're black, you might consider that a blessing. This tiny town in Kent County has fewer than 600 people, and for decades, black families were simply not part of the picture. Officially, there were never whites-only policies, just decades of collective silence. The 2020 census reported almost zero black residents. Neighbors in nearby towns have gradually diversified, but Jayton seems caught in a loop. No black churches, no cultural centers, no local businesses run by people of color. The message isn't written down, but it's clear: this is a place where the status quo has always been enforced without saying a word. You don't need a sign at the border when a century of absence does all the talking. Number 8, Brighton. Tucked away in North Texas, Brighton looks like the perfect postcard town: big porches, quiet streets, and American flags waving in the breeze. But there's something else waving here. An unspoken rule that kept Brighton almost entirely white for generations. As of the last census, black residents make up less than 1% of the population. Nearby towns have become more diverse, but Brighton has resisted change. Ask local historians, and they'll quietly confirm that black families were discouraged from settling here after the 1920s, sometimes with words, sometimes with action. Today, black visitors say the silence can feel heavy, the stares linger too long, and there's an unmistakable sense of not quite belonging. Brighton markets itself as warm and welcoming, but for many, that warmth has an invisible border. Number 7, Haskell. Just west of Dallas, Haskell sits at the crossroads of old Texas and new dreams. It's got all the small-town staples: a city square, a local fair, and a history that's a little too quiet for comfort. For years, black families lived in the shadow of unspoken boundaries. Certain streets, certain neighborhoods. Everyone knew which ones to avoid after dark. Today, Haskell's black population is just a fraction of the total, and stories still circulate about racial profiling and bias in schools and housing. There are no official records of sundown laws, but the town's unwritten rules make their presence known. Progress here comes slow, if at all. And sometimes, the most dangerous form of exclusion is the kind you can't see. Number 6, Roscoe. Roscoe, Texas. Population, just over 1,200. It's the sort of place where everyone knows your name, and maybe your business, too. In the early 1900s, Roscoe was a cotton town. Black labor was essential, but black life was never truly welcomed. When the work was done, so were the invitations. Through intimidation and a lack of opportunity, black families quietly disappeared from Roscoe's story. Today, the town is over 95% white, with black residents rarely staying for long. You won't find this history on display at the local museum. If you ask, most people just change the subject. But the whispers persist, and for many, Roscoe is still a place best left in the rearview mirror after dark. Number 5, Melrose. With a name like Melrose, you'd expect something welcoming, maybe even quaint. But in the late 1800s, Melrose made headlines by ordering all black residents to leave, no exceptions. It was open, it was aggressive, and it left scars that haven't healed. The town's population today is over 90% white, with black families making up less than 2%. Visitors and newcomers still talk about the cold welcome, the subtle signals, and the lack of acknowledgement for what happened here. Melrose celebrates its agricultural roots but keeps its real history buried deep. Sometimes, what's most telling isn't what people say, it's what they refuse to remember. Number 4, Lampasas. Lampasas, Texas, where the history of exclusion is written in black and white. In 1887, every black resident was given a week to leave. That mandate was enforced, and for generations, the message stuck. Today, Lampasas has tried to rebrand, but the shadow of its past lingers. Black residents make up just 3% of the city's 7,000 people. Integration was slow. Progress was slower. And the town's traditions are still celebrated with little nod to the pain or the people left behind. You won't find a statue or a plaque marking what happened. Instead, the silence says it all. For black families considering a move, Lampasas remains a cautionary tale. Number 3, Edna. Edna, Texas, just a quick drive from Houston, but a world apart in terms of history. In the mid-1900s, Edna was known for quietly escorting black workers out of town at the end of the day. Permanent residency was never encouraged, and the numbers reflect that, less than 3% of Edna's 5,800 people are black. School policies and housing practices have changed on paper, but stories of exclusion and subtle bias persist. Edna calls itself a great place to grow. For black families, that growth can feel stunted by invisible barriers. The past may not be advertised, but it still shapes the present. Number 2, Ridgeview. If you want to see what happens when a town tries to erase its own history, look at Ridgeview. Once home to a thriving black neighborhood, Ridgeview's black population has now nearly vanished. Cemeteries were paved over, homes were condemned, and the old schoolhouse is just a memory. In recent decades, the black population dropped below 1%. Some residents openly share stories about how the town kept things the way they were supposed to be. Even today, black travelers report uncomfortable encounters, extra attention from police, strange looks at the store, and an undercurrent of tension that never quite fades. This isn't just about who lives here now, it's about who was pushed out, and who never came back. Number 1, Nashville Crossing. If you know Texas, you know the name Nashville Crossing. It's become almost a code word among black Texans, a place where you just don't stop if you can help it. Located near the Louisiana border, Nashville Crossing has a history that reads like a warning label. Attempts to integrate public housing in the 1990s met with threats and intimidation. Black families who tried to move in were harassed until they left. Today, the town is still 93% white, and black residents make up under 2%. A recent attempt at a community dialogue was met with resistance and denial. Residents insist the past is behind them, but black travelers still get the message: you're being watched. Nashville Crossing didn't get its reputation by accident. It was earned, one generation at a time. There you have it, 10 Texas towns where, for black travelers, history isn't just a story, it's a warning. The signs might be gone, but the memories, the legacies, and the systems remain. These aren't just tales from yesterday, they're reminders that where you go, and how you're treated, still depends on who you are. Before you set out on that road trip or pick your next hometown, ask yourself, what stories does your map leave out? If this episode opened your eyes, don't just scroll by, like, comment, and subscribe to Beyond Borders for more honest, tough, and necessary conversations about the places America would rather you forget. Until next time, travel wise, travel safe, and always read between the lines.